Hi, class. I'm Laura Delozier. I'm a strength conditioning coach. I spent 8 years in athletics, bounced around between universities and NAIs, and then 1 year in tactical. The difference is that I don't have teams that I'm in charge of technically in the weight room, but I do, it's like more personal training, but it's still kind of group effort because we separate at our base instructor pilots and students. So students, they have to be kind of on a regimen per up the chain Air Force, right? So standards that are kind of being flowed through their career starts really early. So we kind of get the chance to teach them a bunch of different things around fitness and what it means to strength conditioning and what it means not to just lift your 1RM when we say strength, but also not to go out and run 18 miles when we say cardio. So we kind of get to fill in the gaps. And then the difference is that they don't have to come to us. They get the choice to come to us for advice and for programming and for different things. So general knowledge base is something that I've had to shift out of, as in like when they ask for, hey, I'm getting a pinch here, my knee feels weird here, they don't necessarily want a program, right? They want answers of how quick fix. But sometimes that just means, hey, come talk to me again. We'll throw this in your routine, see how it feels. If you want something a little bit more regimented and structured, let me know. But their program is like 8 months. So I get them for about 10 months or a year, depending on when they come in and when they leave. But athletic side of the world, you get to a university and then you get assigned teams, right? So you get to talk with the coach to know their goals and dreams and aspirations for the team, what their practice looks like. And from that, then I get to kind of mold what they look like in the weight room. As soon as we come to agreement there, then we get to execute it. Now I don't have a coach to answer to. It's just the person to kind of convince, right? So that's the main differences between going from athletics to tactical. Now, with athletics, sometimes you go to a smaller school and you get bombarded with maybe 6 or more teams, but hopefully that's not the case everywhere, right? Because then you kind of just get chained. It's a lot of fun, and I had plenty of good times, right? So I'm not knocking small schools at all, but I've been at different levels where they've had just more people on staff, and it's been a little bit easier to program for that 1 or 2 teams, because then you get to actually like snowball and be specific, right? You get to domino effect into this worked, this doesn't, this is specific for the team. Maybe I get to go out in the field and help with running form. Maybe I get to go out and help with speed. Maybe I get to go out and warm you up with some of the things I wasn't able to do at life. But it never meant that I never got the opportunity I wanted for every team that I had. And I think that's the approach that I want to take talking to you guys, is that it doesn't matter where you are, right? People will ask you, if you get into coaching world, what's your coaching philosophy? And then what's your coaching style? Coaching style is how you program. Coaching philosophy, that's where you base a lot of your non-negotiables, some of your routines, some of your, not every coach approaches the weight room like I do. And I'm sure that you guys, if you've been with Trace now versus how I ran lifts how I was taught and how I wanted to see how everything played out. Trace was taught a different way. He was, he has his philosophies too. So like sometimes it's just different, good, but different. So the approach that I gauge really when I talk to people, again, this never changed from when it was athletic versus tactical based, right? So tactical, it's way more individualized. So now I get to sit down one-on-one, say, hey, what have you done previously? What do you like? What you don't like? What injuries are you kind of battling around? And then how much time do you have in the weight room? Like I kind of gauge their feel for like, do they like doing some strength-based stuff? Do they not like some strength-based stuff? Do they want to go a little bit more on that conditioning side? Hey, I want to get my mile pace up. Hey, and it's just like incorporating, hey, there's so many more options than just getting out and running your miles during the week, right? So especially when you talk about the biomechanics of just keeping your muscle strong to keep your joints strong. Hey, you want that kick at the end, or you don't want like shin splints or something, let's try these different like plyo drills, or like at least some sort of like hopping or pogos, because that's what gets your tendons stronger. You know what I mean? Like simple, like those different facts that you may not know. But try to like engage in intentful conversation. I don't want to say convince. You don't want to convince someone that they need it. You want them to like pique their interest and say, I never knew that before. That's cool. It is cool. So energy, as they have you in the conversation, energy, intentional conversation, what the routine looks like. If you can gauge that there are some gaps in the routine and say, hey, that could be a red flag for you to be like, okay, we need a little bit more consistency here, and this is how we can help build it. Maybe it's meeting you at the same time, Tuesday, Thursday during the week, and just starting with that. Maybe it's, hey, I want you to do an extra, if you want to do a conditioning session, do it on your own, do it at home, so you know that you have a routine here at work and you have a routine when you're at home, right? So like, routine doesn't have to change, but if it's gonna look different than what they've been doing, then you have to kind of present it to what's realistic for them to fit in. Especially if they have a home life, especially if they have family, especially if they have kids, so that runs into more play than it did athletics. Experience also determines what we get put in first. GPP is always the answer. No one will ever agree with you, but GPP always works. General prep, right? That's the basic movements. I always tell them your first 4 weeks will be GPP, basic. I want you to adhere to the program, and I want me to adhere to you adhering. That compliance factor is trust, right? And if someone doesn't agree with it, they won't come back for a second phase update. Maybe it's not right for them yet, right? Maybe they still want to stick with their routine that they wanted, that gym bro split, right? Will it get them farther in their goals? Maybe not. That's them to determine, right? And me to be here to support. I can't force anything on someone, right? So I think that's the hardest is like athletics, you had a time, they were in there regardless. Tactical, if they don't want it, they won't get it, right? So that's the, amount of exercises, pace, time they have available, right? So if it's a bunch of setup for some of these equipment, then they're not going to want to do it, or they're in a gym where they have machines and they can't superset. That's all things you have to think about when you program. The style of having a squat-based hinge, single leg, push-pull, core, that never changes. I always have that as top priority. Why? Because if they get busy and they don't do one of their lifts or one of their cardio sessions, they still have that total body lift of what they did. So they never miss anything, right? And I will always stand on that. Sometimes you can split upper, lower, push, upper, lower, pull, and then a total. You're still getting some of that total body feel, but you're still giving them the split that they want, right? So that is different. But some of those who aren't used to having a routine, especially in the weight room, I say pick something and look forward to it every single day. Pick one thing that you have on your sheet. Pick one thing you don't like and challenge yourself, right? So have that balance of like, pick one thing that gets you in the gym that you want to do, that you said you want those abs, we'll put in a little extra core, right? So that's the goal. Some of my philosophy is get 1% better. If you don't have time, walk on an incline treadmill for 30 minutes, 1% better, right? You stayed in that steady state heart rate, you burned a little more fat than if you were to walk around a track, right? Or try to kill yourself for a half-hour HIIT workout. You don't have equipment, do some wall sits, do some bodyweight stuff at home, challenge your isometric holds, right? So that's another thing that like we want you to kind of like broaden your horizons with, right? I always used to tell athletes, you're already up and dressed, ready to go. You're already here. Don't waste it. Don't waste your time, right? Don't waste your time. And keep it part of your routine. When things get busy, don't let that be the first thing you knock off. I have some student pilots that think that is a non-negotiable as much to work out as it is to eat. That's their non-negotiable. They always kept it. Now the program gets a little intense towards the last 2 months, right? So then they usually drop off with physical activity. But the ones who don't make it, right, on a non-negotiable, it doesn't drop off as much. When I'm programming for, whether it was teams or whether it's for tactical, right? Same thing. What is a job demand that they're going to do? If it's going to be heavy and this, and this, let me, 1, mitigate some of that imbalance, and 2, help prevent some injury that could help from just being in this one position demand all day. You guys, it's a little bit more, like athletes, it's a little more accessible for like, if you're moving and you're always forward, right? How can I, if you're changing direction, How can I make you stronger in those pivot points on a dime when you have to decide to help keep you safe from injury? These guys, they sit in a helicopter and they hold a cyclic and they hold the collective and they're hunched. They physically call it a Huey hunch, right? But if you're sitting all day, what are you not doing? You're not opening up here. You're not opening up in your hip flexors. Your hips are tilted. Your back has that vibration. We don't really hit G-forces because we don't go high, but the vibration from sitting and in this position, right, that makes a difference. So that's, to me, just because they're not moving around in the field doesn't mean that that's not a job demand. So kind of try to help them see, and especially getting feedback from pilots, instructor pilots, and people who have been there long enough to like say, hey, this is what you're going to want to look out for. This is what starts to hurt. If they have a helmet and they're going like at night, they've got the NVG goggles to help them see, but it pulls their head forward out of the neutral position. What are we trying to help? Resiliency, right? Get them out of that. How many times, if you're going to be in this position for 3 or 4 or 5 times a week for 2 hours at end, how can I open up and be resilient? If I could be more times working on my posterior chain, working on the resilience, how often am I going to get hurt being in this position? Not very, because that's, you're deepening your ratio of job demand, resiliency. And people start to feel better and they want to keep that, right? That is the addiction. I feel better and I'm not hurt as often. How can I keep that? Especially when you think about the identity outside of athletics, your identity outside of being a helicopter pilot, that's what we try to strive for, right? So programming, they get into 4 different buckets, right? And it's expanded from when I used to program for athletics, because I used to just take their demand and their yardage and their practice time and their demand of practice intensity wise. And I used to kind of try to complement that. A little different here, right? So some people want to enhance their cardio and their kick at the end of their race. They want to do marathons at one point in their life. Sure, great. Let's look at your running form. Let's look at how well you keep your pace. Let's look at how each energy system of your anaerobic, aerobic, that alactic middle ground, each feeds into that aerobic system. So how can I use all of it? One, to help mitigate some, so if they're medium paced, intensity is a little bit low, but their volume's high, middle of the week, how can I dip their volume and increase their intensity and shorten their workout period? Intervals, right? And then you have your longer run at the end of the week, your longest run. So that's, again, low intensity, high volume. Can I make their progress like this? If I start with a wave, can each phase move up? That is progressive overload, right? So that is the beauty of getting someone to understand what that looks like. Because it takes time. People don't want to take time. People don't want to take time. It's going to take time, right? That's the beauty of it. I can't argue. I can't out-program what that time will look like. I can't get you there faster. You just have to understand it's going to fit into different buckets. Either tangent over, right? 4 buckets. Cardio. I just want to be I just want to be free of injuries. Cool. Maintenance. General. They stay in JPP. They don't like touching barbells. That's fine. We've got plenty of other stuff. Strength and foundation, right? And sometimes they say functional, or they want both, right? So cardio, injury prevention, strength, and both. Cardio and strength. After that, I've created templates to fit and mold that. After those templates, after that GPP, those first 4 weeks, I tell them just to get through, then we get specific, right? Because then we've built trust. We've built a rapport. We've built, hey, you like this. You didn't like this. I want to push you, right? You told me you didn't like pull-ups. I put them in there for you just because you don't like them, right? We're going to get better. It depends on the equipment that they have, that they'll be at the gym that they'll be at. Sometimes we have a couple of different gyms on base. The time that they have, the couple of days before, what are you doing? What's intense? Their schedule usually changes. So performance evaluation. How do I measure success? Well, I have 2 different parts, right? We take the wellness survey beforehand, and that's pretty much your how much did I sleep? How well did I sleep? Am I stressed out? Hydration level and readiness. those all get put onto a graph for numbers, right? So if I look at longevity of someone who's gone through the program, their stress is up as soon as they get tough, and then it goes down, and then it goes up, and then it goes down, right? So like we can tell the trend of, okay, when you were stressed, you got less sleep because you were worried, because you were anxious, because you didn't have a routine, right? And then you didn't have time for water. Everything goes down, right? But when you're feeling good, your sleep is good, right? They're stressed out, but not so much that it throws off their routine. So you can kind of see like, okay, you did some things well during this phase, but you didn't do things well during this. What was good, right? What was good about it? Try to keep them to keep positive and, hey, I did this right. I'm getting this many hours of sleep. It's improved since when we started working with you, right? So readiness. And then the second one is acute to chronic workload. From duration of exercise or duration of workout to RPE, which is how you feel, how your body felt, it was hard or easy. That gets into a formula, and then we use it to calculate acute to chronic workload. Now, they have a threshold, right? The 0.8 to 1.3. Maybe getting the numbers skewed, but 0.8 to 1.3. And then that's usually off of studies, like that's the threshold that stays people pretty healthy. If you don't hit it, you're not getting enough stimulus. If you hit it too often, you're just hitting your ceiling and you're not making progress, right? So, or your stress load is too high to maintain any sort of progress, adaptation to your stress, right? You're just stressing your body out and breaking it down. There's no room for improvement, right? Because you're not getting enough in that safe zone. So I kind of put them on a graph as well. So I measure that out. So individually, I could be like, hey, you dropped off, you were here, you were right underneath that threshold, you're doing well, you dropped off for 4 weeks and you came back and you're automatically above that threshold. And then you came back down because then you made a routine out of it again. So we kind of be like, hey, this is what your body was telling you. Like, it's too hard, right? So if you drop off too many times and restart the program, you're not adapting, right? You're not staying between that threshold. So that's another way I kind of like try to give, as well as trying to do in athletics too. Because if I could give hard, concrete numbers of you're doing well and this is why, we're not doing well and this is why, that's just another reason to keep you in the program and keep you relevant, right? Keep coach on the right lines, right? Because no coach wants to be told what to do, but they want to be told when they're doing things well and why it worked well, right? And what room of improvement do we have, right? So that always helps. Feedback, when I give feedback, usually it's, hey, where did you feel that? Like, I try not to come off hard, like, you're doing it wrong. Do you want to listen to me if I tell you you're doing it wrong? Probably not, right? So where do you feel that? If it's an RDL, do I feel it in my hamstrings? No, I feel it in my back. Great. Try this. Go ahead. Give me another set. Let me see what it looks like. I'm invested in their time. They're invested in me and being invested in them, right? So that's kind of like a coaching philosophy that you can adopt, right? You could say, I'm invested in you. If I don't fix it, it's a disservice. In athletics, because that's what I signed up for, of like keeping athletes safe, and because they had no choice of being in there, right? Essentially, that was my caveat. If I didn't help someone or talk to someone, it was a disservice. And it is, because if I do not invest my time in you, what are you going to do? Not invest your time in me, right? So as a coach, it does have to be passion, right? So you have to want to do it. You have to want to put the work in. Now, I don't have to say put in 12 hours worth of work every day, right? But in your internships, you have to stretch yourself a little bit thin to know what it feels like and to get the experience. If you're not there for most of the teams to see them, to view them, to see them day in and day out, you're not going to learn of like coaching other coaches and their philosophies and how they deal with stressful athletes. If I used to come up to an athlete and I know they did not want advice on their lift, but I know they needed to be safe, I said, hey, try this in your squat. This is what I see. And then I would not revel. I would just walk away. You hear me? Acknowledge it. Good. Walk away, right? Some people are like that here, right? It's not like just an athlete thing. I get people that like think they know, right? Because they've just sheer been doing it. So, like, for me to have a difficult conversation, it's really just getting them to answer. Like, I had a person who asked about testing, and they were going to test, their squat and deadlift on the same day. I said, why would you do that? And because he's had a lifting background, right? So I said, why would you do that? I said, won't one hurt the other? He goes, yeah. I'm like, then why would you do it on both days, right? Like, trying to get him to say it. Well, maybe that's, he's like, okay, well, maybe that's not exactly, like, maybe I won't do that. I'm like, again, it's up to you. But if I were testing, I would want both to be a day in between, right? I want to make sure that, like, nothing's hurt from the other. Like, that's a huge, like, CNS load, right? If you want numbers, don't do them on the same day. So it's kind of like working through a conversation, because it's a loading issue where they have too much on the bar. If you see that, and you can correct them. If it's a movement quality, where am I lacking in movement? And then if it's a structural fix, right? So, like, getting them to be like, hey, I see this. This is what it could mean. Try this, right? And then they get questions and they're like, hey, I tried that. Next time I squatted, I felt great. Hey, I had my heels up a little bit and I was able to get more depth. That feels good. Hey, the mini band helped my knees to stay in. People always think it's just going to happen. If I squat, my knees will come in and that's it. No, it's fixable. You have to always push out, right? All right, so not getting too much in the rabbit hole. Difficult feedback. Accountability. How I keep people accountable now is you feel better, you do better, right? You can do better, right? Like I always say, try to give them a little confidence. Even if it's not where you know that they can be, if they take a lot of time off in between their lifts, they'd be like, or like, say if I have an athlete who's over the summer and doesn't do a lot, but they started to do some work, right, over the summer. Hey, you look good. Hey, like, you're looking good. I see your progress. Anytime that I could say I see your progress, or like, hey, if we were just more consistent on these couple days, at least get 2 days with me. At least get 2 days with me, right? And then they'd be like, okay, maybe I'll at least get 2 days. And I have a instructor pilot who, she had a baby and she wanted to come back, and her fitness and her PT test was in verge of, like, failing. And she goes, I don't want to fail. And she had something going on with her knee that she's had PT before she got to our base. I continued some of the things that, like, they were doing as her, like, warm-up routine, but I also incorporated some strengthening things. And then once she had pain gone, then we were able to move back into running, because the PT test is push-ups, sit-ups, 1.5 miles. We could argue about that later of why that's silly. But get pain away. Can I strengthen? Can we build? Right? And I always go through range of motion. Can we get range of motion? Because usually if you're pinching or something's popping, it's because it's not moving freely, right? 1, can I get range of motion? 2, can I keep that manipulation of full range by doing something to stay stable? So range of motion, keeping it with stability, keeping it away with strength. So it's kind of differed from athletes a little bit, because I can draw that timeline out a little bit more, right? So, and it comes back to, I'm there for you, right? As much as I want to create this, I have, like, create this argument of, I've been here for 8 years, I know what I'm talking about. You just have to be the example and get their trust, right? So same thing with athletics. I'm not going to say, hey, I know rugby because, or I know soccer, or I know swimming because I've done it. And I haven't done it, but I've studied it, and I can be out at practice and I could watch you guys and I could see, like, hey, give me the meters, give me your really hard day, give me your, what does it look like? Be curious, right? So, like, it doesn't always have to come just from research, right? So be curious, use your eyes, do as much investing as you can if it's going to be strength and conditioning in athletics or strength conditioning in tactical, right? So, like, we get to sit in on some of their pilot classes, and I get to talk to some of the same language, right? So I get to see what their program looks like from start to finish, because 1 is unclassified and I get to do that, but also, like, I've embedded in a class, like I've embedded in a team, and followed them from start of program to end of program. Everything else in between falls under relationships. So word of mouth is usually how we get more people to get one-on-ones. If you do have any more questions, please feel free to hit me up. JP has the contact information in my email. But it's been a pleasure, and hopefully I wasn't on too many soapboxes, but please reach out if you have any more questions. This is a profession not for money, for passion, for excitement, for not sitting at a desk, for challenges, right? So exercise science, you never stop learning. The more you learn, the more questions you'll have, the more experience you'll get. Be curious. Reach out. No strength coach will ever deny a conversation. If you reach out to any university, say, hey, can I sit down? I'm interested in the field. I know you're with this, and this team, and could I sit down with a chat? 9 times out of 10, someone will be like, yes, give me your availability. It may take a while if they're busy, but keep on them. I've had no physical answer no's to sit down and have a conversation. That's your best way to get in to the profession too. Be curious. Know what it is. Know what it is to have an internship, right? Like, know what that looks like. Know the process. Ask someone, hey, how do I get in it? How do I do it? What does it look like? What does it look like being an intern? What does a GA look like? Where can I go? Do I have to move? Sometimes, yes, that could be fun. It was fun for me. But yeah, so ask questions, be curious. Have a good day.